Welcome to Verify Infield, the Millwork podcast. Here's Jacob.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode. Today, I'm excited to share with you guys an interview. We have guest Norm Fink, who is Global Sales Director at Crowsnest Software. Crowsnest is an ERP solution designed specifically for the woodworking industry, and Norm in particular has decades of experience in ERP in the millwork industry. So I'm excited to talk with you today, Norm. Thanks for joining me.
Well, I thank you for the invitation. I'm really pleased to be here, and I just want to share what I've been able to learn over the years, practical and actual experience, and share some of the differentiation that we offer.
Yeah, awesome. Well, to get started, could you give a little bit about your background and how you got into working in ERP software in the woodworking industry to begin with?
Well, that in itself can be a long story, but yeah, I grew up in a family architectural woodworking business. I was a third generation. My grandfather had started the business, and I never even met him. He had passed before I was born. So my dad took it over, of course, and when I got out of college, I went directly into the business. Goes back a few years. I got out of college in 1974, so I think that is a mouthful right there. And considering, the capabilities in terms of automation back then, they were slim to none relatively, just starting to come on, especially in much larger industries, and certainly not in smaller industries like woodworking. A family member had joined our business back in 78 after he had received his master's degree in computer science, which mom and dad were paying for, and came into the business and started elbowing me and said, we got to computerize this place. And I started elbowing back and saying, well, computers are millions of dollars. I hold my mobile phone in my hand today, and back then, millions of dollars wouldn't even come close to what this can do. That was the world we were in. But we were committed, and we wanted to do better ourselves. And he, had that master's degree in computer science and software development, and I became self-learned in that degree, and we started developing software with the intent strictly 100% for our own woodworking business. Well, lo and behold, we ended up developing capabilities. And in fact, it's relevant, and I'll bring this up because that'll come into further discussion where Crowsnest fits in. But when we took this on and we were committed to doing this, we asked our dad at the time, because there was nothing, what should we develop? What are the needs? Where do we start? Do we write an accounting software? And my dad's words back then was accounting a schmouting. It's past tense. I need to know, how are we doing today? What can we do in that regard? So in any event, we ended up developing more on the estimating and engineering side for our business. We had estimating and cut listing capability, assembly billing, and flat panel, not nested, non-nested optimization, and some CAD capabilities. And lo and behold, we unintentionally realized that this is a very marketable solution. And we found ourselves, even though I went to college my entire time thinking I'm coming out and I'm going to be the third generation running this family business, in 1980, we went out on our own, developed a company, and very successfully, we really catered to the architectural woodworking side of woodwork more than anything else. And that was based on our background. Our background was subcontracting commercial woodworking more so than residential. And so to that end, that's what the software was developed for. We realized we had something marketable. We were very entrenched with AWI at the time. My dad was actually among the original founding manufacturing members of AWI. So that's where we started. Our very first customer was a past president of AWI. And then we did that for years. And then 17 years later, there was a buyer that was interested in our software, and we decided that was the right thing to do. And the company was acquired. And from that point on, I've stayed in software in various forms, typically around manufacturing and or supply chain or warehouse and or logistics type of applications, all relative in the same space. And then in around 2012, I was introduced to the folks at Crowsnest, and it's been history ever since.
Wow. So you said going all the way back to 1980 was when you started developing software for your father's company?
Well, we actually started a little earlier than that, but left and became a full-time software company. A lot of folks, of course, this generation now, back in the day, I was a very well-known quantity. A lot of the people that are running businesses today, their parents would remember me if they're hopefully still around. But yeah, we were a very well-known entity on the commercial side, not the residential side.
So obviously I'm sure it's evolved many times over since the 1980 version, but what did that software look like? Because computers looked very different and software in general looked very different that long ago, right? What did your solution look like in the 1980s? Like what were people using it for? How did it work?
Yeah, so we really just accommodated, as I had mentioned before, the bare minimums of what was going on that side, the subcontracting commercial side. So we
Mm-hmm.
focused on estimating first and foremost. And then the idea is from the estimate where we broke it down and try to calculate what is the material side equation of an estimate as well as the labor side of the estimate. We were well ahead of ourselves back in the day because we even incorporated labor curves in our old software, thinking and this theorem that the more you do of this continuous labor after you got set up and everything else, the more efficient you became in your run of that software. So literally customers could develop their own labor curves of efficiency or inefficiency that was in that software. So the output was, a pretty interesting estimating in terms of labor and material. And from that was driven by cut lists. So we were calculating what the cut list was with the actual computed sizes. And we had some assembly billing capability as well as some what I call CAD assist back then, as well as a panel cutting, again, flat panel, non-nested. There wasn't nesting going on back then. So a flat panel optimization. And of course, the output of that was how many panels are necessary based on looking at what are the various panel sizes that are available and what is the cut list and what's the optimal layout of the pattern. And that would produce the number of panels. And with the cost of the panels, that would go directly into our estimate. And then from that, of course, we had the assembly billing and, like I mentioned, the CAD assist. Rudimentary in today's world, but back then, it was the leader in that side of woodworking.
Yeah, I mean, because that's I think mind blowing to many people because there's still companies today, many companies that don't have ERP software. And so thinking back 30, 40 years, companies, they were truly early on the adoption curve back then to be adopting software like that, right?
Well, I make a distinction in what we produced, and we were actually called Keytrix Systems back in the day for any of the folks that still remember Keytrix. I don't consider that to be ERP, and what Crowsnest is an ERP. And there are so many distinctions. To me, I think it falls more into the engineering realm of
Okay.
software. That is out there and necessary, but that's not what we at Crowsnest consider ourselves to be.
Okay. So it was a very different product altogether and what it was intended to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, adopting software, I mean, because, I think largely, in our industry and specifically in the millwork industry, which tends to be laggards behind, manufacturing in general from a technology standpoint, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm young for this industry still, on the average. And I would say that in my mind, the turn of the century, 2000 or so was kind of when the majority started adopting CNC technology and like software for engineering and stuff. So 1980 was 20 years ahead of the majority of the industry, I would say. And then you still have laggards today that are catching up, right?
No question. No question. Yeah, totally agree with that.
So that's how you got started. And obviously since then, software has evolved and you guys eventually grew into fully ERP solutions that were then acquired. And now you're with Crowsnest, right, which is a full ERP software. Can you talk about specifically the evolution of ERP software from its early days in our industry to where it is today?
Oh, yeah. To that end, I think we have to make a distinction between what I consider everyday, all-purpose ERP software and a woodworking niche-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, Crowsnest is focused on what I consider to be what I call the business side of a woodworking project. When we first started introducing Crowsnest, as a matter of fact, we introduced ourselves as a project management solution. It was industry that kept saying, no, you're an ERP. You're an ERP. Okay, so yeah, okay, we're an ERP, but we're an ERP that's focused on the business side, the project management side, woodworking. And from that, the evolution is we started out with some of the very basics back in the day, pretty much looking at projects as a whole and then offering some document management capability, work order management capability, and some invoicing capability within the software. And there's maybe one or two other aspects back in around 2012 that my memory just doesn't go back that far in that detail. But through the evolution, we just kept enhancing and adding more and more. And today, so on the business side, non-engineering, we are not an engineering software. And there's a purpose for that. But on the non-engineering side of woodworking, on the project management side, of woodworking, we developed a full set of functionality that really encapsulates all aspects from a business perspective, estimating and task management and CRM and document management, scheduling, work order management, and real-time job costing, progress billing, capacity planning, and shipping and manifesting and purchasing that's directly tied in with inventory. And even to that degree, the cohesiveness, that stuff is also tied directly into work orders, for example, and shop drawing tracking and submittal and approval processing. And I can go on, but we're trying to try to keep this to under an hour. So that's the cohesive and the fully comprehensive nature of what has evolved over these last, 25 years, 12 or 15 years that, I've been involved in. Crowsnest itself has been in development for about 25 years now.
So are there any, thinking back over the evolution, and maybe even just in recent history, right? Since 2012, you've been with Crowsnest specifically, which is, going on, 15 years now. And are there any key advancements in either technology or software, things that you remember, milestones that have kind of shaped the current evolution of where Crowsnest is today? Because obviously a lot has changed just in that time in technology. Obviously, database structures have changed. We've gone heavily towards cloud-based systems, and companies, the way they use technology in our industry have changed. There's a lot of companies that are more remote now than they were 10, 15 years ago. Are there any milestones you can think of that were significant shifts in the direction of Crowsnest?
Well, clearly, cloud-based, is opened up everything. I think what really needs to be appreciated is the basic purpose of a ERP in and of itself, especially as it relates to woodworking in our particular scenario or situation. And that is before Crowsnest, because we were the first true ERP software on the market. The problem set was that you've got projects that are being executed by multiple people in the company, and every one of these people that are contributing, the group of them, on a project at a time, those people individually themselves are also working on multiple projects at a time. Now, computers have certainly been around, and even in 2012 when we started, we started marketing, I should say, the software's actually been under development since 2019, 99 maybe, and there was about a good 10 years in there before it really got marketed. So all that was taking place in development. So in that time, there were still computers on everybody's desk, but the problem is the computers that were being used were single purpose, singular computers. And yet you've got multiple people combining their efforts to produce a project. And again, as I mentioned, multiple projects at the same time. So person A, even though he's got a computer or she's got a computer and person B has a computer, A and B don't know what's on each other's machines. And so there's no sharing of this common collective, what is a project. And that needed to be fixed. And that was one of the first things that a true ERP will do, regardless of industry. One common data repository of all information as relates to a project, let alone across all projects. So what was happening without that is the result was either duplication of efforts. Person A didn't know that person B had already done it, or vice versa. Or person A assumed person B was doing it, and neither one did it. And you have gaps and missed events, which become huge. So that was immediately corrected right from the get-go. And then on top of that, the milestones that you mentioned are the various use cases, the functionality that are thrown on top of what I call this infrastructure. And so Crowsnest in itself is defined as a corporate infrastructural solution that has sitting upon it some unique aspects of functionality that relate to the woodworking industry, among with other common aspects of functionality that you would find in any other ERP, such as document management. But a typical everyday use case ERP would not have work order management, for example, where a Crowsnest would.
So one of the first big milestones and shifts, which now, seems like forever ago, but was the shift to a database or a network environment, which allowed collaboration on a single project together, right? And so I think that was a big shift that our industry went through, was, okay, implementing where offices had servers and they had networks and they had shared drives, and built on top of that was this ERP solution, Crowsnest, that opened up kind of a new world of working in collaboration and project management, right? And then obviously now that's, kind of automatic for everybody in everybody's minds, but that was a big shift, right?
Yeah,
when it happened.
Absolutely. And it still is. It surprises me even today how many times, I walk into a situation where there is no sharing still, and whiteboards everywhere, and, which have to be manually erased and brought up, et cetera. And it's like starting over every week again as you have that weekly meeting, as opposed to a continuum or continuity. Right. So, yeah.
Can you give us obviously you've talked about what is Crowsnest and what does it do and what is it built for? Can you tell us a little bit about what, its primary features and kind of what differentiates Crowsnest from the other solutions maybe that are out there people might have encountered?
Well, sure. Happy. Nothing more that I enjoy talking about than what Crowsnest does and why it is different. But the idea is, on top of this infrastructure, which is very flexible in and of itself, we offer a environment that can be either what we call on-prem or on-premise, where the database is located inside of the four walls of the corporate entity, or the database can be out in the cloud. And the flexibility, since every customer receives their own unique, their own database, that is 100% their own, that database can be moved to the cloud at any time, moved from the cloud back on-prem. They're in total control of their database. And on top of that, then, is all, various functionalities. Some of the capabilities I had mentioned before, the estimating, task management, CRM and document management, scheduling, yada, 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 aspects of that. But what makes us unique is a few things. Number one, the comprehensiveness that we go to in each and every one of these areas. When we compete and look at other solutions, maybe they got a work order management, or maybe they have, a different type of view. But the degree that where we go, and then the flexibility that's built in. So comprehensiveness, flexibility, customizability. And that's one of our absolute biggest differentiators amongst everything else that I've seen in woodworking ERP that's on the market. There's competition out there, and if you would look at visit every one of their customers, pretty much you would see the same thing over and over and over again in every one of their customers' usages of their software. With Crowsnest, if you visit every one of our customers, you wouldn't see the same thing twice, because every customer gets to customize and build Crowsnest. Not build, but customize and tailor it, get it set up to run the way they need it to run for their business. They don't have to change their business to run our software. And that's a major, major distinction. On top of that, what also is unique for Crowsnest is we're very date-centric. We're incredibly status-centric. We're communication-centric. And we're also very process-centric. And when you put these aspects into place, you can use them in various aspects that really are quite efficient in their purpose. I'll give you an example. First of all, again, customizability. What are the milestone dates that you want to track at every level in the software? For example, there's project milestone dates. Well, from company to company, everybody has a different idea of what's important to them. But can I get a very quick look at these milestone dates on every project? Boom, I've got information instantly. And I, the user, decided these are the dates that we want to be looking at in our usage of Crowsnest, as opposed to, oh yeah, we give you milestone dates and here's what we think is what you need. Well, then there's also status centric. Well, there's so much data, you can get lost in the data if you can't break it down into useful bits of what you're looking for. So you create statuses. Every project has a life cycle. A life cycle can be a status name. Again, you, the customer, you get to customize. What are the statuses you want to track at each level? Because a project also includes, for example, work orders. Okay. Well, work orders have status. There's a life cycle to the work orders as well as they go through the various stages. In my demo that I create, when I demo the software, I create different statuses and work orders, for example. Well, first of all, planned. So we've got a new project. Why don't we go ahead and just, let's plan all of our work orders. And then from there, maybe the work order progresses into the shop drawing area. So that's the next stage. Where is this work order? Oh, it's in shop drawings right now. It was in created or planned, and now it's in shop drawings. And then from there, we've got submittals that have to be made and approvals. Where is this work order? Oh, it's progressed to that area. So again, you make up statuses. You've got shop drawings that you need to track. How many shop drawings? What status is each shop drawing? Is it WIP, work in progress? Is it in revision stage? Is it just in development stage, etc.? And again, being very date centric, even at the shop drawing level. What is the date that you've started working on this? What is the date that it is due? What is the date that you submitted it? What is the date that it was returned? Subcontractors, pretty much what woodworkers are, they're so beholden to either the builder or the general contractor, and they play such a subservient role to the general contractor where the GC is God in all cases and trying to hold the subcontractor responsible for everything under the sun. Well, your biggest line of defense is Crowsnest because you're documenting everything automatically. And when a contractor says, you're holding up the job, and I can go right to Crowsnest and say, oh, no, we submitted on such and such a date. It took you X number of weeks before you returned it. And even then, it was in revision. We had, and you can share the whole contemporaneous timeline of what happened. If anything, no, we're not responsible for your delay. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you a change order request because you held us up. So, it's this kind of information that can come out of Crowsnest that you typically are not seeing in a lot of these other softwares that are out there. That comprehensiveness.
Okay, awesome. And so, what does an implementation or look like for a normal client? That's because I would imagine are the majority of new Crowsnest customers going from no ERP to ERP, for example, and in that, I imagine that implementation is also kind of a, hey, translate the processes you have, but probably implementing new process for the first time of everything you're talking about. Hey, you need a workflow, you need a standardized process, and we're basically helping you put structure in your business that probably doesn't exist, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right about that. The implementation process is quite varied depending on what the situation is, what the preferences are, what the priorities are, what the timeframes are, and what the resource commitment is or available on behalf of each customer. Again, you're going to hear me, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on one's interpretation, hear the same things over and over again in probably every one of these questions. customizability, flexibility, let alone comprehensiveness, etc. In terms of flexibility, we're even flexible when it comes to the implementation process because every customer has a different priority, a different preference, a different resource allocation or commitment available. And in terms of priorities, Crowsnest being so flexible, it isn't like you have to develop all the setup from A to Z before you're able to start using it, as I have seen in my competition. Some areas take longer to really get in-depth usefulness out of the software, where other areas of Crowsnest, you could literally start today and be using it to its full extent tomorrow. One example of that is timekeeping. You have a list of employees. We'll put that list of employees in. We've got a couple of questions that can be answered. How and the flexibility do you want? Do you want to round off your timekeeping to the nearest 15 minutes, up or down, or cut off, questions like that. And boom, we install in some computers out in the shop. And tomorrow, we teach the users how to log in, what project, what work order are they working on, what operation are they performing. These are the kind of analytics that'll come out of Crowsnest when the input is there, and they're doing it in one day. Now, estimating, to be able to estimate the way that you want it to work for you, there is a library. We provide a library to start, but you're not going to end up with that. You take this customizability capability and either take that library and augment it or modify it to the way they want it to work. Or if you really want, you can start from scratch. Either way. So the gamut that exists from starting some areas and another area you could start immediately is purchasing, because typically a lot of our customers are using something like a QuickBooks or something like that to issue purchase orders. Well, there's data there. If we can extract that data, that goes into Crowsnest in terms of the material master area of what you're going to be purchasing. Now that we have that, we can issue purchase orders immediately. So there are some areas that you can be started and getting utility out of the software while in the background you're bringing up some of these other areas. Some customers want to get done in as quickly as possible and are committing 100%, maybe a resource 100% of their time to it. Others saying, hey, I want to just bring this along slowly, one area at a time. Over the next X number of months, depends how large the company is, how structured it is, and what their need is. And so we accommodate in each and every way. But you're absolutely right about what you had mentioned. And one of the biggest areas of Crowsnest, again, being flexible and customizable and date-centric and status-centric, notation-centric, we're also very process-centric. And that's the key component. A lot of people have heard this story from me in the past. Let's pretend we're in New York City and we're at the ground floor of the Empire State Building and the elevator pitch, right? So we've got, I don't know how many floors it is to get all the way up to the top. And Jacob, I meet you and I ask you, what do you do? And you say, oh, you're in the woodworking business. And I say, well, hey, that's pretty neat. I really like woodworking. What makes your company different from any other woodworker? And I'm hoping your answer to me is, well, it's our process. Process is the key to any business. And that's one of the biggest areas that we typically see customers hadn't really thought about. We love it when a company says, yeah, we've been working on our process. And that's one of the first areas we want to start implementing. That's wonderful. The whole idea is Crowsnest being a strong workflow, we call it task management, that drives every aspect of the software at the project level, at the work order level, at the shop drawing level, at the estimating level. You can put processes in place. We're hoping that you've looked and analyzed your processes and looked at every step along the way within each area.
You've established and ensuring you do them every time.
Absolutely, because otherwise it's going to have a date showing you that you're late, and that date is going to be impactful for other things that are dependent on that being done.
Awesome.
And those dates are already relative to the milestone dates that you've entered,
Right.
what that value of that milestone date is.
Do you have any, because obviously you've explained how, one of your uniques is how customizable the software is, and how if you're going to go to any of your Crowsnest customers, it's going to be, their instance is going to look different, right? It's unique for them. It's set up for them. Are there any specific, examples of customers that really portray that, like how customizable it is and how unique it is? Because obviously, it still surprises me today in finding customers that are in woodworking, but they've found a niche that is very different from other companies. So I'd imagine that's a benefit of Crowsnest is you have customers that their business model might be very different from the next, but they can still build Crowsnest out to work for them, right?
Oh, clearly. Yeah, again, I think it goes to just the differentiation there is the comprehensiveness of what we offer. I mean, there are some aspects that are totally unique in Crowsnest you're not going to see in other software. I'll give you one good example of that. Excuse me, what we have built in, what we call root cause analysis. And the idea there is that you're recording when something goes astray, then you can create a code for that going astray. And we're collecting this information. And then through the Crowsnest Pareto chart, customers can boost their efficiency by pinpointing exactly what the recurring issues are and then improving on them. So again, you've got this sea of data. I have this expression that goes back even older than I am, which is hard to believe, but an expression is you can't manage what you can't measure. And you've got this sea of data out there, but if you can get to exactly what it is that's valuable to you, and this is just one great example where I can pinpoint exactly where I need to go, now I can take actionable work on creating what that recurring problem is and get rid of it. And so, it's those kind of unique features. Asset tracking is another area that a lot of my competition really doesn't provide. Now, that's starting to hedge on the accounting side of software, but, to be able to track all of your assets, including offering different depreciation models that are built into the software. That's just information you can feed to your accounting software. Well, these are some of the additional unique features. Some of our customers that aren't necessarily based in plastic laminate, but they have a finishing shop. Part of the shop is finishing or finishing department. Now, of course, today, you go to your typical Sherwin-Williams or whatever, and they'll make up colors for you. But we still have some customers that are making up their own colors. Well, you can build those formulas right in the Crowsnest. So you have exactly what you did, every little component, how many pints or whatever of this particular, I'm trying to think of a word, this does happen occasionally, where I can't come up with the word that I want, but the tint or the color and how many speckles of this, and now you have a formula and you can repeat that. And then comprehensiveness that differentiates that customers use to their own avail, which really makes it relevant to how successful and how beneficial it is for them. We've all seen Kanban boards before, and Kanban boards are in use in many different ways. Again, let's talk about comprehensiveness, though. And this is the differentiation with Crowsnest. Sure, we'll have Kanban boards. We did look at all my projects, and I mentioned we're very status-centric. Well, let's make that Kanban board laid out in terms of what is the status of each of these projects and have each column for the Kanban board based on the relative status of that project. And of course, you can then move it from status to status. Well, even that potentially I've seen in other software. But if you got this nice, beautiful view and you can't measure what you can't measure, so we need to be able to break things down into meaningful pieces, why don't we use that great view capability of a Kanban board for other purposes? Like, well, there's lots of work orders for every given project. You might have 2 or 3 work orders or several hundred work orders. Can you imagine the volume of work? Now, if we can break all those work orders, again, being status centric, not only do we have status at the project level, but at the work order level, let alone just about every other level in Crowsnest. Why don't I look at my Kanban board view of work orders per status? Well, within each work order is a lot of other information. For example, we've got material that we've had to order for the work order. How much that material to this very second in time, real time, has already been either received or is in stock, so we know whether or not we're ready to proceed with that. Just hover over that workboard Kanban card and boom, it's displaying for you. What are the various work order routing tasks that have been set up? How many of those tasks have been completed? I mean, real-time information. So this is just how much deeper, more comprehensive Crowsnest goes in all of these aspects that you might even see some of these kind of capabilities. Because we just take it, further and further.
Awesome. Well, looking forward in the future, what do you see coming in the future for, trends or innovations in ERP solutions for woodworkers? What's out there that people listening that maybe should be on the lookout for, or that you see coming?
Yeah, I'm always, and we are always thinking about this, and you look at it. The ERP itself has come, obviously, a long, long way from its infancy, as I've mentioned, the functionality enhancements that we've included. And, I can make a case for custom woodworking business that's already pretty much found supportive technology in each type of aspect of their business. On the business side, you've got the ERPs that are out there, the Crowsnest that are out there. But there's also design and engineering work that needs to go on. So there's design software, there's engineering software. Engineering software such as CAD and CAM and MES, manufacturing execution systems, cutting, optimization, nesting software, etc., and CNC planning and or programming software that's out there. And on the design side, you certainly have some great design, beautiful design capabilities today. So then you ask, well, where do we go, in the future in these areas? And to this end, I think the answer is more in terms of what's the strategy? And the strategy being that, well, there's really two approaches. Do we have the ERP doing more and more and bringing in all kinds of capabilities that are what in ERP really, which is a business-oriented, project management-oriented solution, is now delving into other areas like engineering and potentially design software. So it's offering a much wider width or breadth of what it's offering, but doing none of it optimally, as opposed to having a really incredibly comprehensive and flexible, customizable, foundational software, because Crowsnest as your infrastructure, and there is engineering software out there, well, that engineering software is going to end up the output being inside of Crowsnest, so you have one place to go to get everything. And that gives total visibility to everybody. So the other side of that strategy, rather than being a be-all to end-all for everybody, is a best-of-breed solution where you've got an incredible, strong, and ever growing foundational infrastructure, as well as then on top of it getting best-of-breed engineering, maybe best-of-breed design, etc., and having it all unified in one place. Well, when we look at the strategy, our strategy is that latter, where we are the foundation. We're going to remain true to that. We don't plan to become an engineering software because our core competency, our knowledge is based on project management. And therefore, we're always looking at what are the new technologies that are out today, i.e. cloud-based solutions, etc. And so when we look at the future, what can we do to apply what is now available that wasn't available a year ago or 2 years ago that we can incorporate into what we're offering? Not only coming out with more capabilities in the way of customer requests, could we have the software do this? And this is how our software has always grown. But do it in such a way that it's really, really purposeful, because there's a new technology that makes things either just easier to use or looks better or more efficient, etc. So that's how we approach the future. Now, having said that, I probably would be thrown out of this podcast if I didn't bring up the two letters AI. Everybody today is talking about AI. It's getting to the point that some people think you won't be able to go to the bathroom without AI. And the real key here is the use case. AI in itself is really good at just a few things. One is regurgitating, all the language it has access to online to output a topical, relevant response. Examples are that you can write stories, have AI write stories for you, and rewrite it in a different language, or rewrite it to shorten what you had, or to blow it out further and expand upon what your thoughts were in somewhat professional manner. AI is great at that. Also, AI is great at developing graphics or pictures and or vocals. But let's look at the use case. In our case, on the business side, the project management side, we can see where maybe AI might be very purposeful in communication. So we get in our document management area a email or a letter comes in, and maybe we could apply AI at some point where we'll look at that letter, understand what it says, and put out an automatic response without somebody typing it out. Okay, well that potentially is a use case. But to me, the real power of AI could be purposeful where it's not practical. And an example of that would be, I would love to apply AI to take a set of plans and specs, look at them, understand what's being asked, look at what our capabilities, what our typical pricing is based on our situation, and then look at all the other pricing of similar projects. And that's what AI is good at, creating patterns, looking at common patterns of information, and therefore predicting what you should go in would be a successful price where you'll make money and you'll win the bid. But it's not practical, because what woodworker is going to broadcast? What woodworker is going to broadcast? Well, here's my price on each of these projects. That information doesn't exist. And if AWI doesn't have information it can latch onto to look for those commonality of patterns, then you've got nothing. So as good as AI sounds today, there are practical limits. Now, maybe this will change in the future, and we're keeping our eyes on that. But so for that reason, I've stated maybe a case where we can have automatic correspondence. That could be a future where it'll go. But rather than that, I think more importantly for Crowsnest, where we're going is we've got an incredible set of capabilities that's more purposeful than anything else I've seen. What can we do to make it even more purposeful based on new technologies that are coming out? And that's what we're always applying. I mean, we literally have a new underpinning of our user interface, just the technologies that have come out in the last couple of years that we've started employing. So that's an example.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Norm. For anybody who's listening who is interested in finding out more, reaching out and scheduling a call, or just getting more information about Crowsnest Software, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, we offer our website, crowsnest.com. Crows just like a bird, crowsnestsoftware.com. You'll find me certainly on the website. There's a book a demo, which comes in directly to me. I'll share my phone number, which is 410-960-2940. I love when I receive phone calls, of course. And, my email, which is also on the website, but norm@crowsnestsoftware.com. The key is to look at the feature set that's there, and if you feel that there's a potential fit for some of the objectives that you have and some of the challenges or obstacles that you're trying to either mitigate or eliminate, then let's go to that book a demo page, fill it out, and I will be contacting you, and we'll start learning about what your requirements are, and I'll be sharing what we can do, and if there's a fit, we should become partners.
Great. Well, Norm, I appreciate you taking time to come on and share your story, to share with us about Crowsnest and ERP. And we'll be sharing links in the show notes. So if anybody's listening to this, you should be able to go to the show notes and go to that website and get Norm's phone number and email. And I look forward to seeing all the stuff that you guys do in the future.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to and be happy to be sharing with you.
Awesome. Thanks again, Norm.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to ductworksmw.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verify in Field.